Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today, we're on a very special journey with a very special guest. Today's episode is entitled Broadcasting Joy, Barry Lee's Recipe for Positivity, Humor, and Community Spirit. I'm really excited today because I get to spend some additional time talking to Barry Lee. And those of you that aren't from our area and are listening from different places in the world, you'll quickly find out why he's so special in the Valley and in our community here in Winchester, Virginia. So I want you to think about the purpose of this podcast. If we go back to the very beginning, I always said that we all have the ability to influence others' lives in every single interaction that we have. And I always want to focus on creating a moment of joy, building opportunities for kindness into just the daily habits, the daily happenings in the grocery store, in the drive-thru. Every one of those times is an opportunity to influence someone's life. So when someone says, I'm not really a leader, I have to disagree because we're all influencing others. So I had breakfast with Barry Lee recently, and I really quickly found why he has been so good at impacting those in this valley for so long. And it's because he does take advantage of those moments. He's always looking for a way to bring joy and positivity into other people's lives. And I've seen the impact that it has. I grew up listening to Barry Lee, and so we had a very special time together. When I decided what I wanted to do for this episode, I wanted to also connect it with a very special time here in Winchester, Virginia, and that's the Apple Blossom Festival. So today's topic is going to be a combined effort of how he brings that joy, positivity, humor, community spirit together, especially during Apple Blossom time. So thank you so much for being with me today, Barry Lee.
Thank you. What a nice intro. Gosh, I feel honored. Thank you.
Oh, no, I feel honored to have you on here. It's really a dream. So I don't know if I told you this when we had breakfast or not, but the podcast is really outside my comfort zone. And so getting to a place where I get to have you on the podcast is really a truly special moment for me.
Well,
I was thinking about all the guests I had, and I said to Matt earlier, I was like, this is like the most special one. I think he was offended because he's been a guest before. And sorry to all other guests, but there's a good reason for it. So can you give a little background about yourself for those who aren't from the Valley so we can paint a clear picture of what has brought you here today?
Well, I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Fairfax. My dad worked with the old Eastern Airlines, and when I was 10, they moved us down to South Florida. So I went to high school, college down there. And then after a romance breakup, I decided I'm coming back to Virginia. My degree was in teaching. I wanted to be a teacher. But at that time, when I graduated all those years ago, social studies teachers, secondary, dime a dozen. So it was hard to find a job. I'd always thought it would be cool to get into radio and fantasized about that, could sort of visualize that. But you don't break into radio in a big city like Miami. So with a broken heart, I left Miami, Florida in February of 1977. Who leaves South Florida in February to come to Virginia where it was like 20 degrees? But there was a reason. And I was here a week and a half living with my aunt in Millwood. And there was a little ad in the Winchester Star, and it said, if you're willing to learn, we'll train you. They had just cleaned house. And I went down, got the job, and started at a whopping $2.35 an hour.
Wow.
And that was WFFV-FM in the Wayside Inn, owned by Leo Bernstein. Was there 7 years, and then migrated over to Wink FM, was there 37 years. And I tell you, I always was so impressed in listening to radio as a young adult, how hosts just made it feel like they were your neighbor. I thought, man, and I just thought, what a neat way to start the day, that you're all one big, and I refer to the listeners as my radio family, and I know that sounds so sugary and saccharine, but it's true. They, even though you don't meet them, you don't see the majority of them, but they're there.
Yeah.
And they're in their cars, and they're in their kitchens, wherever, and you're starting the day with them, and it's been an awesome blessing.
How beautiful. So, total number of years in radio before retirement was?
About real close to 44 years.
Okay, I thought so. But you didn't stop there. So, let's talk about how you're still connecting with a radio family, but maybe in a little different way.
Yeah, I felt real guilty. I think we talked about this at breakfast. I felt guilty when I retired. I mean, I knew it was the right time, but I felt guilty like I've abandoned my family. I love my family and I missed them. And I
Yeah.
missed being with coworkers. Um, and so some friends, I'd always thought podcasting might be the natural next step. And some friends of mine sort of pushed me towards that a lot sooner than I wanted to. And so it's been a good connection. I focus a lot on nonprofits, so that way I get to still stay connected with my passion of nonprofits in this community. And man, we are blessed with so many. There's so many good things
Yes.
that go on here. And so just accentuating the positive there through the nonprofits and interesting people, people that have a story. Everybody's got a story to tell. And
I
when
do.
I did Cable Talk on TV6, we did over 5,000 interviews. And I
Wow.
thought my byline was everybody's got a story to tell. And I think we're pretty close to getting everybody on here with their story over the years. But yeah, I like to talk to people.
Yeah, it's fun to hear other people's stories.
It is. It really is.
And you said that you don't really necessarily get to see your radio family, but in this community, I know people recognize your voice from a mile away.
It's
So,
funny. It's
yeah.
funny you say that, Sierra, because when I went through this sort of, I wouldn't say a depression in leaving, but this maybe just sort of a downtime, like I don't have my radio family with me
Mhm.
anymore. And it still happens. I mean, people stop me, whether it's at a checkout line or whatever, they hear the voice and it's like, oh, and they all have a story to share. And I thought, well, you
Mhm.
know what? You didn't abandon them.
No.
You're still in their memories. And what an honor to be there. And
Yes.
especially when they have these stories to share, whether it's a birthday shout out or school closings or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's what I was always listening for.
before the days that they had, where they would text you the
Yeah.
school information, you had to tune into the radio.
I don't think that my parents received text. I don't think my household had cell phones when I went to high school. You might be surprised by that, but I don't think we did. It was you. You were the ones that would
Well,
that would tell us.
glad we could help and get you to school.
Exactly. Okay, so I've heard that you say there's magic in the mornings,
Hmm.
right? Fresh beginning, fresh cup of coffee,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And now every time I say fresh cup of coffee, I think of the connection about the cup of coffee.
Yeah,
That story is hilarious.
it is funny.
But what does your ideal morning look like? I'm very curious. What is
You
each
mean
morning?
now,
Yeah.
after I've retired?
Yeah.
Um, well, I've always been a morning person, so getting up early in the morning, never had a problem with that. And
Mm-hmm.
some of those mornings, say like if your morning partner was on vacation and you'd have to go in like extra early, you might be getting up at 2:30, but usually it was around 3:30 getting up, getting to the station, prepping for the show by 5. Uh, the big question people say is, do you still get up early? So I usually get up about, and the animals make sure I'm awake to feed them. But so it's usually sometime between 6, a little sometimes a little before that, sometimes after that, closer to
Mm-hmm.
7. Depends on when I go to bed. But I like going down and just getting the chores done first, which means feeding 2 cats and a dog, taking the dog out, and greeting the day, listening to the birds. I live out in the country, uh, and then going back in and putting on the coffee. And that's what I loved about morning radio and having partners. We'd make almost a ceremony of after we get into the show and things are going. Go, you ready for coffee? Yeah, let's go up and get going up to the Keurig machine and making our coffee. But so I'll make my coffee, and I don't eat real healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's either usually like sort of like something like Ritz crackers and coffee. And when the weather's nice, I love sitting on my porch. I have a special chair that you just lean back. It's got a big wide arm. Set my coffee there. I can watch the birds at the feeder. The dog sits down there waiting for crumbs. That's my ideal morning. And I scroll through news. Sometimes I have to cut that short because there's just, a lot of negativity there.
Hmm.
But anyway, that ideal morning is, being able to sit out there without being bitten by mosquitoes and gnats and just watching a new day start.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you think that impacts the rest of your day?
Um, for me, being outside, I have to be outside. My therapy is being in my
Mm-hmm.
woods, working on something, clearing brush, working on the cabin. Um, but yeah, just that it sort of sets the tone. I'm outside, um, and it just sort of it does sort of set the mood for the rest of the day. I'll sometimes go back in and do paperwork or writing, work on the podcast or whatever. But um, I've got to be outside. When I was
Yeah.
a kid, if you did something wrong and you were punished, you had to stay inside. Now
Mm-hmm.
kids are made to stay outside,
Outside
and they
when they're in
can't get to
trouble.
their Now they can't go into their electronic games and stuff. But I've got to be outside. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I can relate to that. I love being in the outdoors. But the challenge with it is now living in Greencastle, PA, where I live, we're in a townhouse. So we have people all around us, and it's like a little postage stamp. And my outside, directly outside, isn't that relaxing? Like, I can't get out there without someone on both of the other porches. We talked about this. I'm an
yeah.
introvert too, and I would prefer to have the morning to myself and think and reflect, but I just can't get that. So I'm looking forward to the day where I can get back out in the sticks like I grew up in, and have that ideal morning that
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about. Okay, so I'm curious about this. You can tell a lot about a person based on the type of coffee they drink. What coffee do you drink, Mary Lee?
All right. Well, I want to go back to the coffee thing
Oh, yeah.
because I like to. Part of my philosophy is just celebrating the little things that get you through the
Yeah.
day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and rewarding yourself. And
Yeah.
something goes good, a project that you've put off for 2 years, and then one day you decide to do it. That took 15 minutes, Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
in the mornings, getting everything started. If I'm washing the dishes, I'm the dishwasher at our house.
Okay.
When I got married, I made the mistake. My wife's an excellent cook. I said, "Well, you cook, I'll wash," and she's held me to it ever
Oh,
since
ever
then.
since.
Yeah, but I mean, she'll do them sometimes. But anyway, so if I've let them go a couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
and so I tackle those things. I like to get it done in the morning, and then after I get that last dish done, I go, "All right, time for a cup of coffee." And you shared with me like, yeah, we were talking about rewarding ourselves over the little things, and
Mm-hmm.
you said, yeah, but when you have that celebratory cup of coffee, now you've got a dirty cup. And I swear, I laugh. That you wouldn't believe how many times that comes up after I do dishes, and then, darn, I do have this cup,
Yeah.
Sierra. You know,
You were right. It
yeah,
defeats the whole
yeah.
purpose.
But as far as the coffee I drink, please, people, don't judge.
We're not judging.
um, when it was at the radio station, we had uh, initially we had real good coffee, and you brew up a big pot of it and everything, and everybody learned how to do it. Then we went to the nice Keurig machines, and that
Mm-hmm.
was cool. When I retired, though, uh, I'm lazy. I even did a podcast about instant coffee and
Oh,
found
did you?
out that the health benefits,
Mm-hmm.
are the same,
Okay.
and I liked the taste, and it was quick. We've
Mm-hmm.
got one of those kettles that heats up stuff really, really fast, and it's not even name brand. I think it's like Food Lion, instant coffee.
Okay.
And now on the weekends, my wife will grind up the coffee beans and percolate it, and
Oh,
it all
that's
percolates.
fancy.
Yeah, that's on Sundays, but during the week, yeah, it's my instant coffee. Don't judge me,
We're
people.
no. It seems efficient, and if
it's
it tastes good, that's
it,
all that
I
matters.
guess maybe I've learned to me it tastes good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's so funny because my obsession is Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It
Now,
is
now you're
good,
talking.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I get the K cups so I can have Dunkin' at home on days I'm working from home. But the days that I have to drive all the way to Winchester, I choose to go through the Dunkin' drive-through as a reward for all the effort that I'm putting into being on 81.
Amen.
You know, I,
Yeah,
I feel like I deserve a reward for that.
you definitely do. Boy, do you deserve one coming from PA.
Yeah, so okay, I want to jump to the name Breakfast with Barry Lee. How did that name even come to mind in the beginning?
You know, I don't know. There were so many, everybody had a name for their show, or, it was either your name or something. But I thought, well, mornings, breakfast was always special
Mhm.
growing up at our house. So I just thought, okay, starting the day, I like that family feel. The radio listeners are your family. And so,
Mhm.
all right, we're all gathering around a breakfast
Yeah,
table, breakfast with Barry. So, and it stuck.
I love it. I love it. So, thinking about all the years that you spent in radio, you ended up at breakfast time, and it sounds like having that morning routine is important to you to set you up for success in the day, right? Did you choose the morning opportunity specifically because that's a special time for you and you wanted to connect at that time, or was that the slot that you were given?
I was hoping to have that slot. I
Hmm.
would have taken any slot. I was just excited to be in
Yeah.
radio. And the guy that was training me, he was doing mornings. He was the program director, and he was trying to fill the roster there. And so he knew that, I guess I let him know that I didn't mind mornings. And I like the idea of getting up early, the energy of the day,
Hmm.
doing your work. And man, I've got the rest of the afternoon to myself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of selfish in a way too, that having that afternoon free. So I was just very lucky that that was the spot that was open, and that's the spot that I've always done.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, I think you're perfect for it because you're absolutely right in saying like your morning really does impact the rest of your day. People that get up, you said about like how the news can be so negative and maybe you stop looking at it at some point. Like you don't want to put that negativity into your mind first thing in the morning,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So I think it makes so much sense for you and just your mindset in general of always bringing joy and hope to people in the community.
Yeah, at one time, uh, you know, we were raised active in our church
Hmm.
back home, and at one point thought about going into the ministry, and then, you know, thought, well, there's other ways to do this, and
Yeah.
and so I sort of, in a way, I sort of look upon the morning show that you're being a neighbor, you're being a friend, you can say something that'll maybe help somebody through the day, and in a sense, that
Mm-hmm.
is a ministry.
Yeah.
And um, on my last day, a guy called in, uh, and it really drove this home that he said, just want to wish you well. And he says, you don't know me. He said, but when my son was little, he says, I was single dad. He says, we are going through some really, really rough times. And he said, you don't know what it meant to turn on the radio in the morning, just knowing you were going to be there. And then whether it was something silly you said or playing the mind bender game together,
Mm-hmm.
he said, that got us through a lot of days. And man, that
Yeah.
just touched me. To me, I was just showing up and doing the job that I love,
Mm-hmm.
but for him, it was helping him. And to add to that, he said, my son's grown up now, lives, I forget what state he's in. He says, I called him up this morning to tell him that you were retiring. It was your last day. He said he cried.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, man, and then the impact. Uh, the days after that, reading emails, I just sat on my porch and cried.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah,
And we've talked about that. We're
yeah.
also a little bit of empaths here.
Yes,
So
we
we
are.
feel the
Yes,
feelings. I was
we
sitting
do.
on the couch last night watching a TV show, bawling like a baby. I literally feel it as if it is real life. And it's
I know
crazy
it.
because someone was hurting and I could feel the pain.
On the one hand, it's a blessing to care that much, but it's
Hmm.
almost a curse sometimes too,
Yeah.
because you do. I burned out in social work right out of college
Mm.
because I was taking people's problems home
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, that's what made teaching very hard because I thought of every student as my child and to see some of the things they were going through and me not really being able to influence their personal lives as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like that was really, really hard. And I'm sure a part of the stress that was leading to my my Lyme cycle that was going on there. But yeah, it's hard to feel all the feelings. But I'm glad that we do.
Yeah, I am too. I
Yeah,
am too.
yeah.
We'll live with it.
Well, yeah, we'll deal with it. So we talk about you giving this big dose of positivity in your radio show and your podcast. What do you do to get through the tough times and stay positive? Because you always appear so positive to everyone else, and there has to be those difficult times behind the
Oh yeah.
scenes, right? And you
Yeah.
have to wear the smile when you're out and about.
You do. You
But
do.
but tell me about how you stay positive even on those tough days.
Attitude of gratitude.
Mm,
Um, no matter how bad things get, you know, you can find something to be grateful for.
yeah.
Even the simple things. Oh, there's an extra piece of cake. There's still one piece of cake left. I mean, doesn't matter how small or how silly, but
Hmm.
um, and I think just being silly. I'm naturally a silly person. I sing to myself. I sing to my dog. I don't dance in public, but I'll dance in front of my dog. Just little things to sort of boost yourself up and
Yeah.
get through. And a lot of people, because you are always up and cheerful, and I am. I mean, sometimes my brother and sister was, oh brother, here you go. I always try to
Hmm.
put a positive spin on things.
Hmm.
And it's just who I am. But sometimes people find it hard. Like, well, you mean when I tell some friends, that yeah, sometimes I get depressed.
Hmm.
Sometimes I go through anxiety. Are you kidding me? Well, yeah,
We all
yeah,
do.
we all do. We all do. But
Yeah.
you just sort of work through it, and it's like I said earlier. It's sometimes the silliest of things.
Mhm.
Uh, I love to laugh, humor, um, and always made up silly little songs for my kids, and we still sing them to each other. and but sometimes just the simplest of things, but always being grateful, no matter how bad the day is going. You can
Yeah.
find something like, I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always something. I'm all about, gratitude practices. And I've talked before about journaling, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, what are you grateful for? And that sort of thing. But I don't know if you've ever experienced this where you're trying to help someone see the positive in the moment and they're so like they're in such a difficult spot that it's hard for them to see it. And so you ask them to identify something they're grateful for and they say nothing. They can't think of anything. That like breaks my heart. It's happened to me numerous times before where someone's like, "No, I can't think of anything." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Imagine being in a headspace where you truly can't even be grateful for just being alive right now."
Wow, that,
Right?
that is painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it is really important as a daily practice to consider, what am I grateful for today? And I
Amen.
challenge myself to not repeat the same thing as before. You know what I
Wow,
mean?
look at
Like,
you.
uh, well, everything's a competition for me, Barry. I have to be honest. So even if the competition is with myself, uh,
Uh,
it's happening
no, I was
behind the
grateful
scenes.
for that yesterday. Don't do that.
It's
Yeah.
not allowed. I write the rules. So I'm sure, yeah, that laughter and positivity has to be so good for your mental health and get you through those tougher times more quickly, maybe, and you're more resilient, maybe, than the average Joe because of it.
And
Um,
studies have shown that, even if you fake a smile, looking in the mirror, or
yes.
singing to myself a silly song or something, or doing a silly little dance in the kitchen, it does work.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it would scare people to see it, but it
I
does
was
work.
going to say, people are going to request that you dance in public
No, I
now.
don't do that. Don't do that.
I have my limits.
Yeah.
And I got to hear some of your little ditties earlier. You played some songs.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just love making, yeah, little songs, little poems, just little things that, yeah, it's like a hobby almost,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, I do want you to know that I was doing the yodel so much that Matthew actually complained to his family about it. What did you say, Matthew, that I sounded like?
Uh, I think I used a couple of different descriptions of it. Dining moose came to mind.
Dying moose. This is
Caterwauling.
caterwauling. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's just say you sound so much better on the podcast that I'm very thankful that you're not trying to yodel.
Well, it's not over yet. So just
Yeah,
wait.
yeah. I mean, we could yodel something together
We
here.
could. We could do a little ditty.
Thankfully, I do control the mute button.
Okay, got you, Matt. Okay.
But I bring that up specifically because just even the theme song, the little ditty, you know what I mean? The moment I hear that come on, I smile, I'm laughing, I'm yodeling, which I don't yodel outside of that song specifically. So I just want to reinforce
Well,
that you are bringing so much joy even through a little tune.
well, that tune was created by Parson Brown, a
Mm-hmm.
podcast listener, and he was a guest, gosh, a few years ago. And he says, I've got a little gift for you. And he put together a song. And I said, can I use that part of that for my intro? And I told him after our breakfast, I said, you know, had breakfast with a podcaster and Sierra Collins. And she said that she just kept humming that all day long. He says, that made my day. Made him feel
Aw,
good. I
good.
said, you're still bringing joy. And I said, every time I'm editing my podcast and that thing comes on,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to do it.
That was good, by
You
the
have
way.
to-
That was good.
I could have yodeled, but not like Parson, though.
No, that I think really does tell you the importance of when you think about someone and they're impacting your life to tell them, right?
Absolutely.
The fact that you
Absolutely.
went and you told him, you could have kept that to yourself.
Yeah.
You had breakfast with me and I mentioned it, but you took it back and it impacted his life.
You're right. People
right?
need to know.
Yeah.
They surely do.
Just like I have people pop into my head randomly in the day, and I force myself, like if someone pops into my head, to stop and pause and just say, I was just thinking about you, right? Because I just like want to capture it in that moment, and I want people to know I'm thinking about them.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's so powerful to think that another person at that moment is thinking about you. And man, you talk about being embraced by spirit and goodwill. That's
Yeah.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I challenge you to try that sometime. When someone pops into your head, maybe it's a little sign that they need to hear you're thinking about them,
Well,
right?
it's weird how many times when you're thinking of somebody, it happened just in the parking lot before coming in here. I made a phone call, and somebody, a good friend, and she said, "Man, that's just so weird," because it happens a lot. You're thinking about them, and then the phone rings.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that to me is reinforcement that there was a reason.
Yeah,
I was thinking
absolutely.
about him. Okay, so when we talked about these kind of small acts of kindness recently and these little moments that can make a big impact on someone's life, I was curious if you have a special moment, something that happened in, a random place when you least expected it, that you took advantage of that moment to have an impact on someone's life. Does anything come to mind?
Oh gosh. Well, there's one, and it's so tiny, and it happened a long time ago. Back when there was an A&P on Amherst Street, we'd had a big ice storm, and I was coming out of the store, and there was this dear old lady standing there with her bags of groceries, and I thought, man, there's no way she should be walking across this icy parking lot. And I just, said, would you like some help getting to your car? And she goes, well, my husband's here, and that's his car over there, but he doesn't know I'm standing here. Would you let him know I'm here? And I said, sure. And as I turned to walk away, she says, you're my angel. I mean, but silly, simple little things. And the things we do, whether we're letting somebody in traffic or it's and just saying hello to strangers. I don't know if I shared this at breakfast. I was so shy as a kid. My dad, when I was 16, he picked me up from high school one afternoon, and I get in the car, and he said, before we left, he said, I want to mention something to you. And I go, okay. And he says, do you realize that when you walk, you're looking straight down at the ground? I said, no, I'm not. I'm not. He says, yeah, you do. He said, put your shoulders back. Look at people, And I was just so shy. And I thought, he's crazy. Well, the next day, walking down the hall, I go, oh, he's right, because here I am looking at people. But the more you practice that, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? Hey, you get some smiles coming you exchange those. To this day, he passed away in 1998, but to this day, I, I'm still basically a shy person, but
Yeah.
I like speaking. If you're on the Old Town Mall, just a nod, that smile coming back,
Yeah.
you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a feel good, you take that chance to go, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, doing good,
Mm-hmm.
and I still think of him, that when he challenged me to come out of that
Yeah.
comfort zone,
Yeah.
and it does get easier.
It
It
does.
becomes a habit where you're saying hello to people and
Mm-hmm.
giving them a grin.
Yeah. I was the same exact way, actually. I would not make eye contact ever. I couldn't order my own food at a restaurant. I would like cover my face with a napkin when I was eating so people wouldn't look at me. Like I was maybe even worse than you.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I've come a long way too because now I'm almost offended when people don't respond to me when I say, good morning, how are you? They're like, who's this girl? Why is she talking to me?
What makes you feel really good? And I can remember, I guess my son was probably, my son's 33 now, but he was
Hmm.
probably 7 or 8. And I remember he was going in to get the mail at the post office there in Middletown. He had the key, and he goes to the door, and he's standing there. And I go, why isn't he going in? Why isn't?
Hmm.
And he was waiting for somebody, older person, way down the sidewalk, and opened the door. Something that simple, and you think,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
makes you
Someone
feel
took the
good.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that he's picked up on what we do.
yeah. I in the very first podcast episode when I was trying to explain the whole reason behind the podcast and then I was trying to break down leadership practices for everyday life so everybody can apply it. I told the story of Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, the one in Greencastle, PA. I was in the drive-through line, and that is the best, fastest Dunkin' I've ever been to. I like they are so efficient, and I appreciate the efficiency. But that morning, it was backed up pretty far, and it was moving really slowly, and I was realizing, something's different here. I don't know what's going on. They must be struggling in there this morning. Maybe they don't have enough help or whatever it may be. And I have the window down, and I'm kind of listening to other people's interactions, right?
Yeah.
Taking it all in, people watching. Uh, and people were grumpy and rude to the individual at the window. So when I got up to the window, I saw it was this younger girl. You could tell I'd never seen her in there before. Maybe this was her first day. Who
Might have been.
knows, right? And you could just see on her face the anxiety. She was so overwhelmed, and I could almost feel it because of who I am. And I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me right now. I need to do it. So I was like, I'm in control. They can wait. So I sat there, even though she had already given me my stuff. And I was like, let's just sit here for a second. I was like, you're doing a great job.
Oh,
They can wait. Take a deep breath, right? And I just had a conversation with her, and I'm like, I'm probably making them mad, but I wanted her to have the opportunity to like gather herself before the next person was at her again. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I would have felt guilt for the rest of the day if I didn't stop and take that opportunity to impact her and change her day. She was so grateful, so very grateful. But I just try to look for those moments everywhere, anytime that I can. And I think a lot of times people are moving so quickly that they don't see the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't like see it to seize it. So I think it's important to slow down and look for them.
When you talk about being stuck in traffic, going back to that gratitude thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of jumping out of sequence here, but
Oh, it's okay.
I can remember before I retired, and I get on 81, and no sooner than I got on 81 there off Berryville Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
there had been an accident, and it was just going nowhere. And I'm thinking like, oh man, I was looking so forward to going home,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually everybody's turning off their cars, turning it off, sitting there, and of course and then the helicopter comes, and I thought, wow, somebody's,
Mm-hmm.
man, does that change you in a hurry?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's having.
Mm-hmm.
So, hope they're okay. Hope they make it.
Mm-hmm.
It just changes everything. I'm griping because, you know, I'm sitting here and maybe it's going to be an extra half hour before I get home, but this is life and death
They might not
in
make it
that
home.
car.
Yeah.
Exactly. And somebody's going to miss them. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, that's inserted back on that attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, no, it's important and it connects to all of it. So, what advice would you give to someone, a listener today, about how to be more intentional with those moments?
Oh, gosh. I think just being in the moment and it's just so easy to be distracted, to let something get us. I think it goes back to the gratitude thing. I think that to get you out of that funk to I don't know. It just seems to revolve back to that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it almost you see everything through a different lens if you can pull yourself out of that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and like you said, for a lot of people that say, "Oh, I don't have anything to be grateful for," but you know,
That's in the moment. You know that's not true. You know that's just
right,
how they're feeling
right,
in the
right,
moment.
right,
You
right.
give them a few minutes and they might think completely different about the same thing. But yeah, I mean, we've all been there at some point where it just seems, well, you talked about your broken heart,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And I imagine how you felt like coming back and feeling like, you're coming to the area, you're leaving what you thought was going to be a long-term relationship, and how hard that was. I'm sure it was hard to see the positive in the moment.
Well, it's interesting, and I just talked to a leadership class at Shenandoah, and I share that story with them that.
Mm.
To visualize what you want. I had fantasized about working in radio, um, but it wasn't going to happen in Miami. And so I was trying to find a teaching job.
Mm.
And it's interesting that for every day that I was depressed, you know, every day that I just thought, this stinks,
Yeah.
that, to come up here when I did, something was calling me
Mm-hmm.
to be up here a week and a half and then a radio job.
Yeah.
Had I not gone through that breakup,
Yeah.
who knows,
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sit, when I worked in downtown Miami, I used to sit at my desk and I would visualize a log cabin by a creek. That ended up coming true a year after I got here. That would have never happened. So I tell him, I said, for every day I was depressed, I was one day closer to a dream coming true.
Yeah.
You don't know what's on the other side, and it's and when you're down, it's hard to think about anything on the other side, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to think it that something good's coming my way.
Yeah. It's a really good point. As you were saying that, I was thinking about my time on bed rest and, how I have transitioned to a place where I feel like, well, I'm glad that I went through the experience of chronic Lyme disease, because had I not, I wouldn't have started my business. I wouldn't be on this podcast right now with you, right? None of this stuff would have happened. And, for you, a dream came true, right? For me, this wasn't even a dream. I didn't even know I wanted it at the time, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the pivot and what has come of it and my ability to impact others in the way that I can, I feel like, I'm grateful for it. People are like, wait, you're happy you had Lyme disease? I'm like, well, then none of this would have ever happened. Right? So
Right,
it turned
right.
it into
We
something.
don't know. We
Hmm.
just don't know what's on the other side.
Yeah,
We just don't.
you're exactly right. All right. So earlier you mentioned that extended family, your radio family, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about community and your perspective on community. I'm sure your thought on what your community was has changed over the years. Tell me a little bit about that. How do you define your community, and how has it changed since you came back and came to the area specifically and started in radio?
Well, one thing about radio is that, and people do find it's odd that how can you be shy? But they'd be surprised how many radio people are shy.
Mm.
But but it does get you involved with the community, whether you're covering uh, stories, whether you're hosting an event, uh, doing a remote broadcast from a store, and then getting more involved, whether it's like United Way functions, and then
Mm-hmm.
SPCA events, and then you find yourself, being invited to serve on boards, and it grows. It literally grows. We had, what was it? It was 2 weeks ago, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they celebrated, as part of Volunteer Recognition Week. Winchester had a thank you to volunteers there at the Our Health green area.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Sharon Gromling, and Andy Gale helped back it up, that we have close to 300 nonprofits in our area.
Wow.
And so when you say community, and what gets me is the number of volunteers, the people that, I mean, we've got something special here. The people that share their time, their talent, their concern for others. So when I think community now, I like to think of all those, all these nonprofits that are trying to help people that are struggling. And obviously, I mean, we live in a beautiful, beautiful area, and in Winchester, the architecture. I mean, it takes in all of it. In Middletown, the fun things, the parades, that community feel. Back on New Year's Eve, people used to come from out of the area to come to Old Town because they wanted to feel a part of something. Because maybe where they were living in a city in Northern Virginia, they didn't have that community feel. I get that same feeling when I walk up and down the Old Town Mall, and people are out dining, and people are smiling at each other or walking their dogs. I don't know. It takes on all kinds of definitions.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that specifically about maybe coming to this area because they maybe don't have a community outside of that. So I actually grew up in Hampshire County, West Virginia, so in Yellow Spring, town of less than 300. But to me, this was the big city. And so, it's where we had to go for groceries. It's where we went for everything. And it's where both sets of grandparents lived. And they were my world. So to me, this really was my only community there. I didn't have neighbors. We were out in the sticks. It wasn't like I was hanging out with other kids. We were more secluded.
Yeah.
It was a 45-minute drive in a car to our high school. And then a bus ride was over an hour each way. So I was used to spending a ton of time on the road, but it caused this disconnection. But here in Winchester, I felt more connected to people. And then the other way my community has expanded, I was used to the world of education. And I knew that world very well. And I, knew a lot of people in it. But I wasn't exposed to the world of business and all the community leaders at that time. So when I left, Winchester Public Schools or Fairfax County Public Schools, and I switched into business in the community, and I got to meet these folks that are leading nonprofits and volunteering in the community. It gave me a whole new perspective I had never been exposed to before, and really got to see the value of small business, right?
Yeah.
I got this little glimpse of it. So my grandfather used to, he went to Soul and Burgers all the time. And that was a highlight of my day, to ride along with him and go into Soul and Burgers. But, those little moments stick out in my mind of moments of community because everybody there knew him, right? And I felt connected in some way.
Absolutely.
So I can see it. I can see it walking down Old Town Mall as well. So I actually saw, I think they planted a tree. Was it in Middletown that they planted a tree
on Earth Day,
in your honor?
On Tuesday, yeah. Charles Harbaugh IV, the mayor, the week before, he said, I can't say too much, but are you available, at such and such a time on the 22nd? And I go, well, yeah. And I'm thinking wonder what this is.
Yeah, what am I getting myself into?
Well, yeah. What
Uh-oh, it's Charles. What's he up to?
Yeah. Well, and then on the morning of the 22nd, he texted me what they put on the town's Facebook, and I thought, that's what it was. That was special. And I love trees. I said, this is so appropriate because I do live in the woods. I was fortunate enough to sort of semi-stumble upon my grandparents' summer cottage, make that my home, buy it and get it back in the family. But the trees, I never knew my granddad. I was a year old when he died, but he loved working with plants and outside. And I guess genetically, I inherited something like that. But
Yeah.
the boxwoods that he planted, there's pictures of how tiny they were, and the cedars, they were so little. Now they're huge. And I mean, he's still there, through
Yeah.
these trees,
Yeah.
And yeah, I talk to the trees. My favorite sycamores, when I'm walking the dog, I reach out, give them a little pat.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
they're living things. And so from that respect, that tree, that was just, and Charles said such neat things about, for Earth Day about the tree, and then transferred it um, to my life, and they planted it across from the Wayside Inn, which is where my radio career started in 1977,
That is
and
amazing.
that was pretty special. And my wife and my two kids and my sister were there, and some friends, and it was just a neat way. And Lenny Milholland, who gave me this pink coat.
I was waiting for you to mention it.
Yes, that's a story when we get to Apple Blossom. But
Yeah.
he was coming back from Antietam somewhere and hustled by to say congratulations. And I told Charles, I texted Charles this morning, and I said, when I was running an errand yesterday and I drove by the tree, it was like I had this big grin on my face,
Oh.
But so
Yeah.
another tree to talk to.
Yeah, there you go. You'll have to stop by and visit it often.
Yeah.
It'll be cool to watch it grow and
It will.
change
It
over
will.
time. It's funny because when I saw the post, you talk about feeling other people's feelings, I was like, oh my gosh, that must mean so much to him. A tree is the perfect thing. Like I
For
saw
people
it
that know
and
me,
yeah,
they thought, yeah,
Mhm.
that's
yeah.
that's
It shows how
That's
well
pretty cool.
you are known.
uh,
Yes.
uh,
All right. Well, you mentioned apple blossom, so we're going there.
okay.
I'm anxious to hear your answer to this question. How might you explain apple blossom to someone who is not from our community, who's never even heard of the Apple Blossom Festival before? Can you describe it?
Oh my word.
Are you up for the challenge?
Wow. What is it? 40 some events. How does somebody wrap their head around that? But you know what it boils down to, and I just had this conversation with somebody a couple of days ago. I had been involved with Apple Blossom for many years. When my parents were alive, they lived on Stewart Street. So during Apple Blossom time, I would just park there. It was so much easier with all the barricades and everything, and to go to press conferences, to do interviews, I would just walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved walking through the neighborhoods and watching people painting their front porch steps, putting up banners on the Friday and Saturday of just and taking side streets. It didn't matter that people were having their own little celebrations in their yards and getting together. Wow, I guess just a community pride. What started out as part of a regional chamber of commerce, I think from Martinsburg down to Harrisonburg, that whole corridor, long before there was an Interstate 81. But a delegation goes down, and somebody suggested, well, you guys grow apples, and to think and to look at the names that are associated with those early apple blossom festivals, and some of those families are still involved. I would call it reunion.
Oh, I like that.
I would call
Yeah.
it reunion, and all these, whether it's the college kids coming home, getting together with their friends that used to, bicycle down to the parade route, or
Yeah.
everybody has their favorite traditions, but we all have that one. It's a reunion. I don't, with like 42 some events and 2,000 volunteers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been going to it since I was little, and it always stood out as a favorite time of year. Just things are beautiful too.
Absolutely.
It brings so much joy.
It's just neat that it all evolved around the apples I love the history of the festival and how in the early days the Queen they would all go out to an orchard and have pictures taken, and that was part of the celebration and
Yeah.
all the things that were added through the years. To think that it started out as just like a a 1 day thing, a parade, and then it became a 2 day thing, and now with the wine fest and the orchard tours and things,
Yeah. How
it's
do
like
you
over.
choose what to
It's like
go
it's
to?
oh, there's so many neat things, and that's where the festival has evolved. I mean, there's something for everybody, and when last year in having the honor of being honorary Grand Marshal, I went to if I was at almost every event,
Wow.
almost at every event, and man, you talk about an appreciation. I mean, I knew all about 2,000 volunteers and the hard work and the people that serve on these committees. But man, when you're on the inside of it and you see how dedicated these
Yeah.
people are,
Yeah.
they have their full-time jobs and everything. And, whether it's getting everybody on a transportation bus to get to here, to there, the logistics of putting a festival together, it blows my mind. And it
Yeah.
makes you talk about community pride, all these people coming together to make this experience for everybody. Man, I just came away from there. I mean, I knew it took a lot of people to put this on and a lot of volunteer hours, but it just gave me a whole new appreciation for what
Yeah.
people sacrifice to make it happen.
Yeah, a glimpse behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I saw so last year I had helped with corporate suites specifically, and I saw that was my first exposure to one team of what they do to make corporate suites happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's happening for every aspect of Apple Blossom. Yeah, it blows my mind. And how it can go from like the streets are packed, people everywhere, the next morning when the whole town is clean and is spotless and you
Yes.
would have no idea
Yep.
what had taken place. Doesn't that blow your mind?
That we always mention that on the parade coverage, just how remarkable,
Yeah.
the city employees, the cleanup crews, how they come through into the wee hours, and you would, and we've got the fireworks and
Yeah.
the firefighters parade on Friday,
Mhm.
and so there's thousands of people out there on the
Yeah.
Hanley grounds and everything, and then you come the next day, and it's like, wow,
Mhm.
unbelievable.
Fresh, clean.
Yep.
Yeah, I was working with the city with public services this morning. We had a workshop together, and we were specifically talking about how it impacts public services. I was like, enjoy Apple Blossom. They're like, well, we'll try to because it's so much work, and so much falls on public services
Yeah.
as well. So yeah,
All the barricades and
oh yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you've been a part of the Bloom specifically for decades in different capacities, right? You mentioned last year specifically. But over the years, I know that you've done the program for it. I love listening to you announce. Do you have a special, favorite moment of all the years
Oh,
in
gosh.
your connection to Apple Blossom?
So this will be in working with Lauren and Lisa up in the
Mhm.
broadcast booth for the Grand Feature Parade. It'll be my 34th year. Treasure all those years, and it's fun to look back at the various partners through the years, and then emceed the Queen's Dinner, I think, for 22 years. But I think one of my favorite stories,
You're smiling. I know it's
yeah,
gonna be.
yeah, was when I was emceeing the Queen's Dinner. So, we have the Queen, and it's usually a celebrity's kid, right?
Mhm.
And it was the year I can't remember the year. Chevy Chase's daughter was the Queen,
Okay. Yeah.
and so Chevy Chase and his wife are going to be at the Queen's Dinner.
Yeah.
And even though I'm shy and I have to talk myself into doing things sometimes, there's that little devilish side that sort of says, "Yeah, do it," and it's sort of a formal affair,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
You've got the Randolph-Macon Academy and the Saber Arches, and they come through that and everything. But I thought because Chevy Chase, one of the, originals of Saturday Night Live, he would open up every show by doing an incredible fall or, the stunt fall. I mean, really. And then the camera would zoom in and he'd go, live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live. And you'd think, how does he survive these falls and tripping off these things? Anyway, that became a standard of how the show would open. So I was thinking, like, I should take a fall going up to the podium, And I thought, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. This is serious stuff. Don't do that. And then I'm sitting there, and I'd sort of talked myself out of it. And I didn't tell Sharon Gromling. I didn't tell anybody, the person that was introducing me. And I saw that right in front of the podium was this little riser. And I thought, I'm going to do it. That's going to be. And so I got up there, and man, I took a fall. And people are coming up there like, oh my gosh, Barry. And I stood there and I go, oh, okay. And I, stayed down behind the podium for a few seconds. And then I popped up and I go, live from Winchester, Virginia, it's the Thursday night Queen's dinner. And so, and luckily they laughed. I look over at Chevy Chase and he's doing this like, so, but what really pleased me is that during the middle of dinner, not at the end or anything, he got up from his dinner and he walked over and he said, that was an excellent fall. And we had this neat conversation. He told me about the injuries that he had sustained through the years doing these Pratt falls, these stunts, the shtick. And, but man, that just meant so much that, that he would say, that really was a good fall.
That is amazing. I wish that somebody has to have that on video, right? I wish we had a copy of that.
That was
somebody had to have been recording.
I don't know. I doubt it.
We're going to dig it out. You're going to find out. Give me some time. I'm on
then
it.
Another time, I was asked the year that Melissa Rivers was, Joan Rivers' daughter, Melissa, was the queen. And they said, if the opportunity presents itself prior to the parade, would you guys want to interview, Joan Rivers? Well, yeah, well, I'm nervous as heck. And I'm sort of relaxed now that because it's getting real close to, the parade starting. She's not going to. And then here comes this car and people are making noise and up she comes with her little dog. And she's giving directions to the camera people now. Who's doing the shots from here up? And da-da-da. It's like all business. And I'm thinking like, oh gosh. And then the cameras come on and we had a blast.
Good. Good. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it was.
So announcing the parade, I'm curious, do you have a favorite part of the parade that you look forward to most?
No, it's of course, you're all pumped up for the beginning, and it's that energy, the start. And we've got 4 divisions, and it's a long parade. So when you get to that 3rd division, you're sort of like thinking like, okay.
You can do this.
Okay, yeah, we've got this. But you know what? And the reason I come out of my comfort zone for certain things, like the Chevy Chase thing, driving home that night, I said, I did it. I'm glad I did it, And with the parade, going back to my car, that feeling of satisfaction, it's sort of that reward that, you guys, we the whole team, you feel so close to each other. We pulled it off. That feeling, is like the big reward.
Yeah.
And of course, bringing the parade to people who can't be there in person, but you're their eyes and their ears, but it's just that sense of accomplishment afterwards.
At the end.
That feels good. Yeah.
That makes sense. So I have a confession to make. When we had breakfast together and I brought up the deviled eggs, there was actually a reason for that.
Yes.
So Erica and I had talked about the fact that we should bring you deviled eggs today. But after that conversation with you, where I heard like how particular you are about the saltiness and the olive of this egg, I was like, I can't do it. I put relish in mine. It's not going to be good. I
I mean,
can't serve him eggs that he doesn't.
no. I like, the sweet. I eat too. I mean, but I'm just saying that, you
Well,
know,
I might pop by and give you a couple sweet ones this
yeah,
year and
yeah.
see how you handle it.
Well, and the for people that don't know the story behind it, when you're up there for like 3+ hours,
Hmm.
and you don't have time to eat or anything. You're there for the long haul. So we always go to, I think it's Boy Scout Troop 1 or 2. I think Boy Scout Troop 1, right across from Hanley Boulevard. They've been there since like the 40s or 50s, and it was always traditional to have a hot dog there.
Yeah.
Randy Woodward and I would go over there and have a hot dog prior to the parade. But once you get going, and you can't eat chips or anything, you don't want anything getting caught in your throat.
Hmm.
But anyway, a family friend who lived near the parade route up near Hanley, Brook Hill. She used to let me park at her house, and I would make last minute adjustments to my parade book, and then would walk down to the TV truck, and we'd get ready. And so one year we're up there, the parade's going on, and I see her walk up, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and she's standing there with this platter of deviled eggs. And so when we went to break, she says, I knew you guys would be hungry. And I said, I mean, the security and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I just told them this is for the guys upstairs. And so it became a joke. But that turned out to be the perfect food because it goes down so easy,
Hmm.
smooth. There's nothing to get caught in your throat.
Yeah.
So during commercials, you're getting protein.
Quick bite.
Deviled eggs became
It's
a
perfect.
tradition. Yeah.
It's perfect. Well, it's funny because Erica was the one that brought it up to me, and she's like, "Well, that day when he comes to do the podcast, I'm gonna bring some deviled eggs." And I reported back,
I'm
and
hungry.
Uh,
Thanks. Yeah, man.
sorry, I'll bring you some if you're willing to try some with some relish in it. My
Absolutely.
mom always
Absolutely.
did, and Grandma always did the sweeter option. Matt's family likes them. So I'll bring you a couple, and you can judge them.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
no judge. I'll enjoy them.
Okay.
I'll enjoy them.
No, I want the critique. I want to improve. This
No,
is
you have to stick to the family recipe.
Yeah, this is
See,
true.
that's the
This
beauty
is
of it
true.
too. Everybody's is different. Like everybody's spaghetti's different. Everybody's
Hmm.
chili's different.
Yeah.
You embrace the tradition.
Well, I made deviled eggs for Easter, and I just felt like they weren't as good as usual. And I mentioned it to Matthew. I was like, "Did you think they were okay? Because I didn't think they were as good." And he was like, "Didn't you follow the recipe?" I said, "There is none. That's the thing. And I don't cook, by the way. I only cook if there is a recipe because I can follow instructions. But this is the thing where I feel like you have to make it, and you take a scoop of it, and you know what you need to add to make it right." So there is no recipe, and not every batch really tastes the same. So
Well,
there you
yeah,
go.
but
You just
isn't
have
that
to
sort of the
experience.
mystery and the beauty of
Yeah,
it, though?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is being released. It will be next Friday. So it's
Wow.
perfect timing
Yeah.
for Apple Blossom. Is there an event you're looking forward to most this year?
Oh gosh. I guess the Grand Feature Parade.
Yeah.
I love seeing people happy. Just and to watch the parade of people prior to the parade and after, going back to their cars or coming up to the parade
Hmm.
route, seeing the crowds, how happy everybody is, uh, the outfits, I guess I
Yeah.
guess it would be the parade. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's my favorite part. But I'm on the other side of it. It's a lot of work for you. I'm on the other side. I just get to enjoy it and bounce from place to place and
And
visit.
isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Also, when I say reunion, especially those people that live along parade routes and everything, that they have their chairs up in the yard and their pop-up canopies and
Hmm.
everything, and it's man, you talk about community.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. So when we talk about your recipe for joy, you broadcast joy all the time, right? your recipe for community spirit, for humor. If you could give one overall piece of advice, something that sticks in our listeners' minds today as something that they might do to create more joy and happiness in their life, is there anything in particular that you feel fits the recipe, your recipe? So we know an attitude of gratitude is one component. That's just an ingredient. It's not the whole recipe.
Okay, the recipe.
I'm pushing you.
Okay. Well, I'm a spiritual person.
Okay.
I just feel and believe in a loving God, and I just feel that presence, and so that's an important part of my recipe. Gosh, the humor thing, getting back to that again, as far as joy, and just realizing that, well, it's sort of a sad story, but it helps being in the moment and realizing that today's all we have.
Yeah.
My dad was my best buddy. He was the best man at my wedding. And in his final days, one night when I was spending the night with him at the hospital, we were sitting on the edge of his bed, and we were holding hands. And in the and he wasn't like the real spiritual, philosophical type.
Yeah.
But we're sitting there holding hands and side by side, and he said, and in the most upbeat, cheerful voice, "We got to spend another whole day together." And it just hit me right between the eyes. He nailed it.
Yeah.
Every day is a lifetime. And when you think of that, not putting pressure to do anything spectacular, but just being involved in the moments and knowing that this is, the day. This is, we only have a day at a time, and so make it work. Try to be joyful. Try to be happy, it's. I think just being in the moment and realize, we're not here forever.
No, that's so true. And when you kind of think about it that way, it's like, well, if today were your last day, would you be happy with how you spent it, right? And I have to admit, and he'll agree with me, that I take myself way too seriously sometimes.
Well, we all do.
I always, like, my expectations of myself are up here. I'm always pushing myself, and I'm very serious about getting things done, following my plan. And it's helpful to hear you say that, because it makes you pull back and really think about, that person for me was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. He was my best friend. He passed away within a few days of my turning 13. And that was the saddest moment of my life. And it was hard to get past that. But I've had to try really hard to focus on all the positive moments, right? When he'd take me to guitar lessons or whatever it may be. Yeah. I feel like I did maximize every moment that I had with him. And I think that's what made it special, right? Because I really was mindful and in the moment when I was with him. So I think I just need to apply that to other areas too.
And it's sort of strange. It's, even as a teenager and stuff, if we were having a picnic outside and, Barry, would you go get the mustard? Yeah. And I'd look out the window and I'd look at my family. And I'd think, enjoy this moment. We're not going to always be together,
Yeah.
Even at a young age. And I don't mean that in a morbid, it was just the reality of, and even as an adult, when I go up and visit my parents in Winchester, if we had a meal together, I'd just stop in to see them. And when it was time to go, I'd look back in the living room and just look at them and absorb that, like, not going to have them forever, And you think sometimes, how would you spend your last day? I know definitely I'd be outside with the trees. But we have a family tradition of when we get together, we do croquet. And after the tree planting ceremony in Middletown, my daughter and my son and my wife, we went home and we played croquet.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, if I'm 90 some years old, I said, we're still going to do this, when when we get together. It's sort of a joke, but we're also competitive too.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to ask, is it like an antique set?
The antique set had wooden balls,
Uh-huh.
and it got all it. I still have it because it
Okay.
was a Christmas gift from Santa
Mm-hmm.
when I was 10, I think, and so it's still in the original box and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but no, this is a more modern set,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
My
it's
set
fun.
is my grandfather's set.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
we used to play it in the backyard. It was funny. He had, I don't know the name of the grass, but the really thick grass.
like Bermuda grass,
Yeah, maybe. I
like on a
think,
golf course type.
yeah, it's just so thick. So when you hit it, you had to hit it hard. And sometimes you like overestimated and the thing would
Yeah.
launch, right? But that was our thing, croquet. And that's so funny
Well,
that you
it
say that.
evolved because when we'd go to my wife's parents up in New York, they lived in a farming community, and there wasn't a whole lot to do for that week. So
Mm-hmm.
we had, they had, her croquet set from a
Mm-hmm.
kid. So I'd set it up there. So in the summer we started playing it, and then it became,
Yeah.
we just kept that tradition going.
Yeah, that's cool. I love traditions like that.
I'm so huge. Oh gosh, don't get me started on
Don't get you
traditions.
started on
From
traditions.
from Christmas Eve traditions to
Mm,
it's
yeah,
traditions, and that comes right back to Apple Blossom, right?
it does. It does. And the reunion.
And the reunion.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about something I wasn't planning on talking to you about. So recently, we had asked if you would MC a special event for Jay Foreman and I. And I know that no, I'm not calling you out. I know that it's out of town and it's not something you could commit to doing. But I don't know if you know this yet. Lisa is doing it for us.
Good, good, good,
And we
good.
are so excited about it.
She's awesome.
And I'm hoping you will accept the very first ticket when it comes time. If you'll come to Hagerstown, it's going to be on October 1st at Maryland Theater. And maybe you want to be in the audience and observe Miss Lisa Herndon. But I wanted you to know we're moving forward and we're moving forward with her. So if we couldn't have the duo, it's okay. It's okay. We would love to see you there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's very kind. I know I felt so guilty, but the older I get, it's I try to, focus like a couple hours, 3 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I have my limits and, I'm 36. So I actually have a cutoff of I will only do so many hours at a time. Like my engagement this morning was 3 hours. I never do more than 3 to 4 hours for a client at a time. I don't like to book anything past 3 p.m. because I hit my energy wall and it's Lyme stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I understand. I have to create a lot of boundaries and say no to a lot of things. So please don't feel guilty at all.
Okay.
I
All
only
right.
cried for a few minutes. I'm just kidding. I swear I'm just kidding. But we're excited to bring this to the area. So I don't know how much Jay told you. I haven't told the audience about it. So this is their first time hearing about it. So it's a tri-state leadership summit. And we're getting a little tricky with the tri-state thing. It's actually a quad state, but that doesn't sound as good. So being in this area, tri-state to us, of course, always meant Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, right? Well, I live in PA, and to them, tri-state is PA, Maryland, and West Virginia, not
Yeah,
including
yeah.
Virginia. Well, you have to understand, my network spans that 81 corridor, and so we are inviting folks from all up and down. So when we say tri-state, it resonates no matter where you live.
There
You're
you
a
go.
part of the tri-state. But we're really excited about this. We're going to have 4 speakers. Jay and I are rolling out a whole new offering that we've been working on for a couple of years. It's called 10 Rounds of Leadership. And it's like 10 rounds, like in a boxing ring. We
Okay.
are making leadership fun. You just wait. It's going to be a great event. So we will share the information with you. And if you know of anybody that should come out and visit us, let us know. But it's going to be a blast, and we hope to start doing it every year.
That's cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Look at you
Yeah.
branching out there.
Look at
Hey.
you infusing it in there. I say it all the time. I say branching out in conversations all the time. And people that don't listen to the podcast have no idea what I'm referencing. I do a little giggle and I'm like, trees,
Yeah.
my podcast.
The roots.
People get tired of it, Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today.
Thank you.
You are amazing. I feel so blessed to know you. Thank you for being a part of this, for having breakfast with me. It really does mean the world. I'm going to try not to cry.
Oh, don't do that, because you know how we cry easy.
I know. And then you'll cry. And I didn't bring tissues in here.
Wait. Oh, thank you.
Oh, it worked. I'm smiling.
See?
It's like they absorbed back into my heart.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sierra.
It's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for sticking through to the end of this episode. I hope you found value in listening in to Barry Lee and I talking about ways in which we can broadcast joy to those around us, no matter where you are, no matter who you meet. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Barry Lee, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. As always, we release a new episode every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, so be sure to subscribe so you're getting those notifications. And until next time.
1 second.
What?
Did you do a branching out challenge? I think you forgot today. You need to give a branching out challenge.
But I already challenged him.
Well, then just make that challenge the branching out challenge.
Okay. Now I'm going to have to rewind to that.
No, just keep going.
I am not going to keep going.
Oh, let's keep going.
Okay, so he calls me out in the middle of my closing. I was about to say, and until next time, keep branching out. Every episode, I do a branching out challenge, and it is something that we want to challenge our listeners to do.
Okay.
So an obvious challenge from our conversation would be for them to have an attitude of gratitude, right?
There we
Or
go.
to, just look for the positive in those moments, or find the moments that you can have a positive impact on someone else's life. Would you agree?
I agree.
It's a great challenge.
A beautiful challenge.
See, we did cover it.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, Matt. So until next time, keep branching out.